Part 122. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 1211. Chapter 1211 Extra 4 Technology Changes the Future. Oh, it really went away, great, it was a success. Success, 2 wheels can run so fast. You don't need cows and horses, you just rely on your legs. It's amazing, you don't have to walk anymore. Among the many islands belonging to the Lee family, next to Thunder Island, which has the highest security level, there is a much larger island that is home to hundreds of people from Zhenjiazhuang, old and young. At this moment, because of another successful experiment, the island is completely boiling. This island is named Future Island. When they first settled in, everyone felt that the name given by the princess was hard to pronounce. But the princess said that technology changes the future. The things they like to study most every day are considered by others to be fancy skills that are not considered elegant, but the princess said that these things are called science and technology. And technology will bring about earth-shaking changes to the entire Tianwu in many years. Everyone will be amazed by technology and frightened by the changes. Actually, the Zheng family doesn't have that much ambition, they just like it. But the princess had such high expectations for them, they suddenly thought they could give it a try. Try it hard. Leaving Zhenjiazhuang and retreating to the southeast coast, outsiders may feel that leaving their hometown brings a lot of pain and reluctance. Even the host family tried their best to compensate them and wanted to give them a better environment and better support. In fact, they were not unhappy at all. Previously in Zhenjiazhuang, under the eyes of the emperor and the world, they wanted to do something novel, but they were cautious and timid. Now, far away from the world, I can finally let go and do something big. The more labor-saving and lighter plow has solved the problem of people's difficulty in farming. Shock-absorbing carriages make traveling more convenient and comfortable for people. The labor-saving washing machine has made it possible for maids from wealthy households to no longer have their fingers swollen like carrots in winter. After 10 years, the name of Science and Technology Island is known to everyone in Tianwu. Even if you don't know where the Science and Technology Island is, the elderly and children on the streets can tell you clearly. Every time something new is launched, it becomes popular throughout the country. And this time, the two-wheeled bicycle was successful again. Several craftsmen in their 30s and a group of young men gathered around the two-wheeled bicycles, happily wiping them, not wanting to get a little dust on them. A craftsman said, "The princess asked the fleet to go out to sea to find rubber, but I didn't take it seriously. Now I know that this thing is so useful. The sealing effect is 10,000 times better than cork. I didn't expect to make it into wheels and absorb shock and lightweight. Yes, this tire will definitely work better when put on a carriage. Do we want to try it?" Another companion was eager to try. As a result, this proposal was immediately rejected by the master, who was stroking his beard. When we think about things, the most important thing is to keep our feet on the ground. Compared with the appearance drawn by the princess, these two-wheeled bicycles are more than a circle larger and look bulky. We should find ways to improve. In addition to two-wheeled vehicles, we also need to think about tricycles quickly. The princess said that tricycles can not only pick up people, but also transport things more conveniently. The other craftsmen were not discouraged even though they were splashed with cold water, and responded with a smile. "I understand, Master. We have the prototype of a two-wheeled vehicle, and it is not difficult to improve. Yes, let me think about the tricycle. It just so happens that the birthday of the old lady is in a few days. I will present one to you then and ask the old lady to sit on the tricycle we are thinking about and see how lively it is on the streets of Quanzhou." Good. Haha, if the old lady rides a tricycle on the street, she will not be watching the fun, but will be regarded as a fun. Everyone was chattering lively. Finally, they turned on the tap and drank water, washed their hands, and then dispersed. This tap water is imported from mountain springs into pipes and transported down. Now it reaches every household, which is really convenient. As a result, before everyone had taken 2 steps, there was a loud noise from Thunder Island next to them, and a puff of black smoke came from the island. Everyone stopped immediately and listened nervously for a long time to the sound of the bell ringing without calling for help, and then they breathed a sigh of relief. Third uncle and the others don't know what they are thinking about. They have been frightened all day long. I heard it was a cannon put on the ship. Last time the master's young men went to sea, they almost suffered a loss from the Japanese pirates. They planned to blow up the Japanese pirates' lair to the ground. Everyone whispered for a few words, and then the master shouted, "Just say a few words to my family, and remember not to spread it everywhere. The things on Thunder Island are a means for the master and us to settle down. If someone with a heart knows about it, it will be a big trouble. Don't worry, master, we know what's going on." That's right, I would rather die than become a traitor. Those who are not strict with their mouths are sent to Quanzhou. We don't want to leave home. I'm going to get a bearing for the stove. I'll go too. The tubes on the bicycle are still too thick. It would be nice if they were thinner and could bear more weight. Everyone was afraid of being scolded again, so they just made excuses and rubbed their feet. The master clasped his hands behind his back and laughed and scolded. The master doesn't dislike these idiots, but they still support them like treasures. The young man next to him joined in the fun and asked, "Master, what blueprints did the princess send from outside the other day? I heard that it can fly in the sky, right?" Before the master could respond, get out of class was over in the school. A group of 8 or 9-year-old brats came over like a swarm. They were all disappointed when they saw that the experiment was over. So the brats surrounded the master and pretended to cry. "Woo, Grandpa, we haven't seen the bicycle yet. I want to see how a 2-wheeled car runs. I want to see it." The master would scold his disciples whenever he asked, and when he was angry, he would kick them. But he has never lacked patience and affection for these hopes for the future of Zhuang. You know, since he was at this age, he has been watching behind his father, slowly growing from interest to proficiency, and now he is taking the leading role. Okay, don't make trouble, I'll have someone push the 2-wheeled car back, you all have a try. The master comforted the children in a good voice, and then sent most of the boys to push the cart. Soon, the 2-wheeled vehicle was pushed back. The brats were no taller than the car seats. When they were put on the carriage, their feet couldn't hook onto the footrests, and they scratched their heads and ears anxiously. In the end, one boy was brave enough to stretch his legs out from under the beam, and rode around the grain-drying field several times, making other friends run and jump, as if they had discovered a new world. The master was inspired and shouted to the young man, "The princess said that the money is best earned from children and women. Hurry up and remember it for me. For bicycles, give priority to small bicycles. They are suitable for children to ride. With training wheels on the back, they are easy to learn and not easy to fall. Maybe, the money earned from a small bicycle is enough to install an artillery for the fleet." The young man quickly wrote it down and sent it out quickly. In less than half a month, 100 exquisite and novel bicycles of various sizes were delivered to Quanzhou, which directly set off a cycling craze among young men and ladies. Every family can afford horses, but horses are uncontrollable and too dangerous to ride on. Moreover, horses have to urinate, which also embarrasses elegant and noble young men and ladies. How wonderful it is to ride a bicycle. You can go when you want and stop when you want. You don't need to feed grass or feed. It doesn't stink or get dirty. As long as you go out on the street, you will be the most handsome boy in the city. As a result, the little bicycles quickly became extremely popular. One bicycle sold for 200 taels, but it still had no market value. Although it is not as much as the master expected, a bicycle can be mounted on top of an artillery piece, but it is not much different. At this time, the second batch of bicycles has been shipped to Zindu. There are more wealthy families in Zindu, so prepare your wallets and prepare to be robbed again by new technology. Today's update is here. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 1212. Chapter 1212 Extra 5 The hero bleeds, but does not shed tears. Every July 15th, the Ghost Festival is the day when the gates of ghosts are said to open. Every household prepares paper money and ingots in advance and burns them to their ancestors, hoping that their ancestors will be rich in the next world and that their relatives in this world will be safe and happy. Almost as soon as the sun sets, there is no one on the street. Even during the day, children are kept at home by their parents and are not allowed to come out. The same is true even in Zindu, the place where the dragon's spirit rises at the feet of the emperor. But there is one exception, and that is the best restaurant on the shopping street, Cyclamen. 10 years ago, the last battle at the Tianwu border was fought, and all the prairie horsemen were killed. The Northern Expeditionary Army completed their mission and began to slowly withdraw from the eyes of the world. But from that time on, Cyclamen had an unwritten rule. It means that the business is closed on the 15th day of every month, but the fire in the kitchen is not extinguished. Wounded soldiers from the Northern Expeditionary Army will come to receive a subsidy on this day. Each person is 200 cash, which is not much, but it is enough for one person to eat and drink. Moreover, there are doctors who can consult you, and you can take medicines, ointments, wine, etc. for free. There are 2 sets of summer shirts in May, and jackets, trousers and cotton boots in September. After receiving the money and things, you can find a table to sit down and eat and drink as you like. This food and drink is not limited to wounded soldiers. Anyone who came from the Northern Expeditionary Army, whether they were generals or soldiers, or are still in the army, can sit down and get together. There are also different opinions on the source of this subsidy, wound medicine, and clothing. Some said it was given by the imperial court, some said it was left by the missing marquis specially for the wounded soldiers, and some said it was the Li family's business profits. But whether it's the new emperor or the Li family, no one has ever explained it, so it's just been so vague. When the wounded soldiers received it, they all held their heads high and never thought it was charity. Some of them have lost their arms and legs, some have lost their ears, some are blind, and some even walk with crutches. This is the permanent pain left by their battle for Tianwu. And Tianwu ensures that they have enough food and clothing throughout their lives and that they live with dignity. Year after year passed, some people got married and had children, some found a way to make a living, and some simply farmed at home. No matter what they do, as long as they can get by, they will no longer receive subsidies. But it has become a habit and a joy to come to Cyclamen to drink on the 15th day of every month. On this day, before the sun even climbed into the sky, the Cyclamen was already packed. The veterans were holding teacups, bragging about their bravery on the battlefield back then, while talking about how most of the soldiers today are cowards, and it was very lively. Back then, I slashed 2 barbarians to death with one sword, their heads flew everywhere and their blood spurted out like spring water, a veteran who had lost his ears boasted particularly powerfully. It's a pity that all the old brothers sitting next to him know his details. Someone exposed it mercilessly, haha, brother Sun-san, don't brag. It's the Marquis's ability to kill 2 people with one blow. His sword is long and sharp, so it's the easiest to do. Our waist knife can do it. Cutting off a barbarian's head is good if the bones are not stuck. That's right, that's right. Our knives back then were not very good, they are not as sharp and strong as the waist knives of these guys today. My eyes turned red with envy when I looked at them, others also agreed. Sun Lao-san was not convinced and was about to yell again, but someone came in the door. Everyone turned their heads to look over, but they laughed and stood up one after another. Commander Wei, you are finally ready to go out. New, haha, you are no longer busy at home raising your grandson. What a rare visitor, you come here to brag with us. Wei Erniu was the commander of the bodyguards of the Marquis back then. In terms of toughness and bravery, he was definitely among the top 3. But these years, he stayed in the new village and took everyone to protect Broken Gold Beach. He had enough to eat and drink every day, and he didn't have to work hard, so he would inevitably gain weight. If nothing else, his belly is bigger than that of a woman who is 5 months pregnant. He was now wearing a thin satin suit and an official hat. He looked like a wealthy businessman, and his smile was harmless. While bowing to his old brothers, he joked, "You are bullying me for being good-tempered now, but I just had a grandson last month. I was lazy at home all day and delayed drinking with you. You are really heartless to hurt me like this. I should have known better. If you do this, I won't bring the cart of jade melons outside the door." Everyone immediately became excited and shouted, "Haha, you actually brought a jade melon. That's right, I told you earlier. I told you earlier that I wouldn't have ignored you. It would be so fun to eat melon." With these words, more than a dozen people at the door ran out, and each person came in with 2 jade melons in his arms. The boys also smiled and took the knives from the kitchen and helped open the jade melons from table to table. After a while, everyone was holding the jade melon and eating happily. Wei Erniu also caught a big piece, chewing on it while scolding his old brothers. "It's just you, there's no limit to your enjoyment. Counting 30 years ago, no one came back from the battlefield with half-disabled arms and legs, and still lived like this. Just this jade melon, it costs 20 taels of silver each. The owner specially asked me to bring a cart over, which costs 100 taels of silver. I felt so distressed all the way that I almost shouted to sell it." Everyone laughed and quarreled with him. "So you are just the head guard and cannot be the master's house because you are not generous. The master's family cares about us and we are happy. It's not okay for you to be jealous." That's right, that's right. People in our village say that if I had known, if I had followed Ho, to fight with my master's family, I would have had food and clothing for the rest of my life. He even sent his son into the Northern Expeditionary Army. Some people looked at the people upstairs and downstairs and asked in a low voice, "How is the master's health recently and where does he live? Is there anyone who needs our help?" Hearing this, the others looked eagerly at Wei Erniu. Of course Wei Erniu knew that the master they were referring to was the Marquis, so he smiled and waved his hands. "Don't worry, the master is fine. I heard that he went out with the princess a while ago to go sightseeing. I don't know. No matter where you go. Don't worry, our master will not be bullied no matter where you go." "That's true, unless anyone dislikes his long life." Everyone nodded and started eating with a smile again. Soon, the sun climbed above the head, and the wine and food were served. Wei Erniu looked at the account books and had an idea of the situation of his old brothers. For example, how many people have received subsidies, and how many people have suffered from old problems such as leg pain. In the end, he took a random bite and planned to go home to raise his grandson. "Brothers, eat and drink enough, go home early. Today is the Hungry Ghost Festival, don't be greedy for evil. Be careful if someone unclean comes home with you." He gave a few instructions and then stood up. Everyone curled their lips in disdain and waved their hands away. "Go back quickly and don't say such embarrassing things. That's right, the number of people who died under me is not 100, but 80, even if there are ghosts, they will scare me away when they see me." "Haha, that's a good thing." Wei Erniu shook his head, cursed a few words of kill and quickly retreated. The remaining veterans laughed as if they had won the battle, and then raised their glasses together. "Come, brothers, respect this peaceful and prosperous age, respect our master's family for peace and ease, respect our past, and respect the invincible army of the Northern Expedition. Cheers, cheers, cheers." 110 people clinked glasses together, and after drinking the spicy liquor, the glory of the past was not blurry in their minds, but became clearer. The hero is old and has regrets, but not sadness. This world has not let them down, lying in the snow and drinking ice, with strong bones. They shed blood, but not tears after all. Today's update is here. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 1213. Chapter 1213 Extra 6. When I was a teenager. In August in Zindu, the scorching heat of midsummer has slowly faded away, and it has begun to feel cooler in the morning and evening. Especially the small town of Lugoan, which is 20 miles away from Zindu. It is nestled in mountains and forests and surrounded by green water, making it a bit more fresh and comfortable. With the sound of a bell, the students who had been trapped behind their desks all morning seemed to wake up from their drowsiness and ran to the cafeteria yard like a swarm of swarms. Today's set menu includes braised pork. If you arrive late and can't grab it, you will regret it for more than half a month. But the first thing students do when they come in is not to pick up a dinner plate, but to grab a glass of fruit drink or milk tea with crushed ice, and then go looking for food. Cold and sweet, one sip will cool your heart, and all anxiety and sleepiness will disappear. This is the right way to completely whet your appetite when it comes to delicious food. There are still large buckets of ice cubes placed around the canteen, giving off a wisp of coolness. It is much more comfortable than the classroom. The students no longer looked elegant. They took off their long robes one after another and wore only their coats. They had a mouthful of rice, a mouthful of meat, and a mouthful of milk tea and fruit drink. They felt so uncomfortable. At this time, they are extremely grateful to their senior brothers. When the new emperor first came to the throne, the Li family withdrew from Zindu during the college's vacation, and the cafeteria of the College of Nature was left unattended. The senior brothers hurried back to class and learned the bad news. It has always been easy to go from simplicity to luxury, but it is difficult to go from luxury to frugality. There is no more delicious food in the cafeteria, no more milk tea and fruit drinks that I miss day and night. Senior brothers have to go to the streets outside the college every day to find food, which is not only unpalatable, but also ridiculously expensive. Just 3 days later, the senior brothers broke out and went to the dean to ask for help. It's not that everyone is greedy for food. You can only study when you are full. In the end, the dean came forward to find senior brother Guo Wenhao, and senior brother Guo went to Xianqi to find 2 cooks to cook the dishes. 7 or 8 young men and women came out of the academy, and all other procedures continued as before. This time the canteen was barely opened again, and the senior brothers finally had food to eat. Later, brother Guo reopened the water bar, selling fruit drinks and milk tea, and the taste was exactly the same as before. No one asked where the recipes for making ice and milk tea come from. In short, the college has returned to its original appearance, except that there are no particularly active figures on the court, and no matter who wins the game, there will be no jade melon as the jackpot. Everyone was eating, and while eating, a student took out a travel journal from his pocket and read it proudly. Soon, the classmates next to me noticed it and shouted loudly, "Oh, is this the latest travel diary printed by 7th senior brother, or is it the overseas version?" One sentence caused the cafeteria to explode. All the students turned their heads and looked over, and started talking about it. Impossible. I asked someone to go to the bookstore yesterday to ask if the 7th senior brother has published any new books at all. Me too, I ask people to ask me every day, where did this kid get it? It's a lie, it must be a lie. How can a student with a travel journal in his hand be willing to take the blame for a liar? Let's start arguing. I'm not lying. This is Brother Seventh's new book. My family came back from Guangzhou and brought it to me specially. I estimate it will take a few days for our bookstore in Zindu to sell it. Before he could finish his words, the book in his hand was snatched away with a swish. Let me see, let me see. No, show me first. For a time, a book was scrambled by countless people and passed through countless hands. In these years, although the court has no intention of pursuing the Li family, no one can tell whether the thoughts of the person in the palace may change at any time. Therefore, in the academy, it is customary to call the 7 brothers of the Li family from the first senior brother to the second senior brother to the 7th senior brother. The first senior brother and the 6th senior brother are highly praised, naturally because of their superb literary talents. The second senior brother is because his cooking skills are rare. The third senior brother is the most powerful and has killed countless Japanese pirates. The fourth and fifth senior brothers are even more legendary. They went on voyages at a young age and brought them back to 8 countries for pilgrimage. But the one they liked the most was the 7th senior brother. It seems that every beautiful or strange and dangerous place in the world has the footprints of the 7th senior brother. He recorded these places in the most simple and interesting words. As long as you read his travel notes, it feels like you have followed him all over the world. At the time of the excitement, someone suddenly laughed at the door and said, "Seventh young master, your name is getting bigger and bigger. In the academy, you are more useful than a bad old man like me." The students heard the movement, turned around and quickly stood up, straightened their clothes, and saluted in unison. "Hello, Dean." The person who spoke just now was Dean Zhou. The old man's hair was also gray, but he was as elegant and upright as ever. He smiled and waved his hands to the students, then pointed to the young master next to him and said, "What are you waiting for? This is the 7th master you are thinking about? The travel book you just grabbed was written by him. Now that I am in front of you, instead of reading a book, you might as well ask me for advice." The cafeteria was quiet for a moment, then became noisy again. "Seventh young master, really 7th young master? Ah, it looks exactly like me. 7th young master, 7th young master, is there really an island overseas that is like spring all year round? Is there really a ghost island that can be hidden in the sea at any time?" The students were all talking, asking questions directly and cheerfully. The young man standing next to Dean Zhou was wearing a sapphire blue gown, his hair tied with a jade hairpin, and holding a jade bone fan in his hand. He looked very free and easy. Needless to say, this is Brother Cat. Seeing these junior fellow students, so young and energetic, made him feel like he had returned to his schooling days. He put away his fan, greeted his fellow juniors, and then said with a smile, "Hello fellow juniors, I entered the academy about 10 years earlier than you all. If you don't mind that I don't have any fame, just call me senior. It has only been 4 months since I returned from traveling overseas. I wrote this travel diary, published it in a rigid manner, and finally rushed here without stopping. I just guessed that the junior brothers may have many questions today. We can take this opportunity to have a good chat. In addition, I just told the dean that our fleet will return to Guangzhou in half a month. If you are interested, you can go on a study tour with us for 2 months. There are many sea ships in Guangzhou, and they can walk on the sea all year round. It is very easy for the juniors to go out to sea and see the outside world with their own eyes." "Senior brother, are you serious about what you said?" some students immediately shouted. Fearing that they would be left behind, the others also shouted, "I want to sign up. Reading thousands of books is not as good as traveling thousands of miles. I want to see with my own eyes the sea as majestic as the sky. Me too, I want to see a sea fish bigger than a house. What are the fishes in the sea? I want to see the golden Buddha where the queen reigns." Brother Cat unfolded his fan coolly and joined in with a smile. "I never tell lies in my travel notes. All the records are true. Let's just say that the whale is bigger than a house. Not only does it really exist, but some time ago, there were fishermen along the coast of Guangzhou who were accidentally swallowed by the whale stomach, and finally vomited it out again, almost losing his life. Also, whales are just larger in size. In fact, there is a smarter fish in the sea called dolphins. They can guide fishing boats that are lost in the sea. In the spacious cafeteria, the students surrounded Mr. Cat, listening to him intoxicated. Occasionally, they would ask questions, which would cause a commotion. Dinjo, who was forgotten by everyone, shook his head helplessly, really dumbfounded. These silly boys, I don't know how many of them will be cheated by the Li family this time. The Li family has developed almost all the big islands along the way from Guangzhou to Jinfo. With more people and more things to do, naturally more manpower is needed. This time, Brother Cat made an excuse to celebrate his birthday, but he was actually here to cheat people. However, even if he knew it, he was not prepared to stop it. As the students just said, it is better to travel thousands of miles than to read thousands of books. There is no harm in young people going out for a walk more often. As for how many of the Li family can be left behind, it is the Li family's ability, and it may not be the way out for the students. After all, not all students are suitable to take the scientific examination and become officials. As a teacher, he hopes that all students can find their own bright path. Dinjo turned around and walked out. In the cafeteria, everyone has been immersed in the fantasy of that magnificent world overseas. Today's update is here. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 1214. Chapter 1214, Extra 7. The road is at your feet, and the future is ahead. End. Lejun Cliff is the most unique and dangerous mountain in Tianwu. The mountain is several hundred feet high. Standing at the foot of the mountain and looking up, you may not be able to see the top of the mountain. Moreover, one side is densely covered with trees and ferocious beasts are rampant, while the other side is as steep as a mirror, making it difficult for birds to cross. It is said that someone once climbed up, and the news spread that there was a flat land of 1 acre on the top of the cliff. It is as if the gods in the sky wanted to settle here and cut it flat with a sword. But there are no real gods, no one knows. It's just that people really live on the top of the mountain now. A delicate and compact 2-story wooden building, placed very casually in the middle of the top of the mountain. There were 2 rocking chairs in front of the door. There was a small wooden table between the rocking chairs. The teapot on the table was simple, with steam rising from the spout. The Marquis, who was dressed in a long green cloth gown, came out of the house, sat on a rocking chair, smiled, picked up the teapot and poured 2 cups of tea. Time flies by, and plain and happy days are the best medicine, which can easily heal all pain. The Marquis's brows and eyes no longer had the coldness and seriousness he had when leading troops, and his every move was open-minded and peaceful. He smelled the aroma of tea and looked at the sea of clouds in the distance. He didn't know what he thought of and smiled at the corner of his mouth. Jiyan came down from upstairs. When he saw this, he sat forward and asked, "Does my adoptive father miss home and his adoptive mother?" The Marquis shook his head and replied, "Not really. I sent a message earlier that your adoptive mother is doing well, so I don't worry about it." Just sitting here, looking at the mountains and hills, 2 words suddenly came to mind: the vicissitudes of life and the passing of time. Jiyan couldn't help but laugh, picked up another cup of tea and drank it, and responded, "Time flies so fast. If you don't talk about others, just talk about me. When I first met my adoptive father, I was not there yet. He was 2 years old, and now, in a flash, he is already over 20 years old. 20 years, for us, brings many joys and sorrows, but for the world, it may only be a moment." Mr. Ho nodded and sighed softly. "Maybe I am getting older and believe in numerology more and more. I almost died of illness and came to your house accidentally. Who would have thought that you, a little girl, could save me like that with just a piece of silver and a medicine, live? Just thinking about it now, it feels magical. Others say you are a lucky star, but in fact, to my adoptive father, you are a lifesaver and a lucky star. Ji-Yin smiled and shook her head, as naughty as she was when she was a child. My adoptive father is also enlightened. He didn't think I was a monster at first, so he was so serious about making a deal with a 2-year-old child. Silly girl, my life is about to be lost, what else do I have to be afraid of? Mr. Ho smiled and poured another cup of tea for his daughter, and said, now, what I regret most is that I can't get to that magical little girl of yours. Go see the world. Hands of good news spread out, but it was also helpless. After the space advanced again, people other than her were really allowed to enter. But there are still restrictions. First, it cannot exceed 5 people, and second, they must be her blood relatives. In other words, grandma, father, mother, brothers, and even eldest uncle, second uncle, and third uncle are all allowed, but foster father, Muju, and others are not. Ji-Yin speculates that this is a protective mechanism and also means blood inheritance. Looking up at her somewhat sad adoptive father, she quickly invited her grandma and parents out of the space. Old Mrs. Lee was holding half a shoe sole in her hand, obviously doing needlework. Tao Hongying was holding a shovel with a vegetable leaf hanging on it. Li Laosi was even more miserable, his head was full of foam, but luckily he still had his clothes on. The 3 of them stared at the good news and the marquee for a long time before Tao Hongying had a fit. Smelly girl, how old are you, and you're still so frizzy? Don't you think you'd go in and pick us up when we came out? Your dad was taking a shower just now, and he almost came out naked and was embarrassed. She waved the shovel in her hand, pretending to hit her daughter. Ji-Yin giggled, held his head and got behind his adoptive father. Mrs. Lee quickly stopped her and shouted, forget it, this kid is used to taking things, maybe he didn't think too much about it. Be careful next time, be careful next time. Li Laosi purred the foam on his forehead, and the mountain wind blew him into a big sneeze. Daughter, send dad back quickly. Ji-Yin quickly waved his hand and Li Laosi disappeared. Tao Hongying gritted her teeth angrily, but she still supported the old lady and said, send us in quickly. There are still vegetables in my pot, and they will get burned in a while. Mrs. Lee also echoed, yes, good girl, grandma hasn't finished loading the soles of her shoes yet. Ji-Yin had no choice but to send her grandma and parents into space just to take them out for a walk, see the scenery and save them the trouble of the journey. As a result, these 3 people completely settled in the space and were unwilling to come out. Dad wandered around the fields, orchards, and forests all day long, planting one crop and immediately picking up the next. Grandma even completely took over the vegetable garden, chickens, ducks, pigs, and sheep. Just for safety, the little green snake was put in a cage and was given a good treatment of 1 egg a day. Mom, needless to say, nothing edible in the space can escape her big iron pot. Frying, and frying, everything is fragrant. As for making too much, can you still eat it? This is not something she considers at all. If you can't eat it, just save it. Daughter, this world of treasures is so magical, even if I keep it for 10,000 years, it won't go bad. I have to say that these 3 people, old and young, know much better than Ji-Yin about exploring the space of the small courtyard. Ji-Yin couldn't help but said quickly, I will take the house in a moment. We are going to continue setting off. Do you have? No. You can go wherever you want. We have no objection. Tao Hongying waved the shovel, very heroic, but she soon changed her tune. Your grandma is reluctant to use the good materials you saved to make shoes. Remember to stop when passing by the town and let's go visit the cloth shop. Got it, Ji-Yin agreed obediently, and then quickly took her grandma and mother into the space. Looking back at Mr. Ho was already laughing so hard that he almost spilled the tea. Everyone in the world is saying that Princess Kangal is a blessed girl from heaven who descended to earth, protected by thunder, and can make people rich with just one idea. But who knows, the lucky girl who has countless halos in their eyes must be honest when facing my mother's rice shovel, not daring to resist at all. Jiyan pulled the Ying logo on her chest and couldn't help but laugh. At this time, Muju, wearing a pair of light cyan clothes, came back from outside. Perhaps a sudden change in his family had a great impact on him. After the Li family withdrew to Quanzhou, he actually experienced a second growth. Now his height is catching up with Ji, and he is getting taller and taller. 5 years ago, I finally got married to Jiyan, and he was taken by the Marquis by his side every day. The Marquis did not ask him to get up early and engage in martial arts. Instead, he taught him the way of a gentleman bit by bit. As time goes by, Muju's ruffianism and reckless behavior have become much more restrained, and he has become more and more like an upright gentleman. This made everyone in the Li family more and more satisfied and felt sorry for him. Only Jiyan knows that the person beside her has just learned how to be the person that everyone likes. But in private, with her, he was still unrestrained and free and easy. Fortunately, this is also what she likes. There are many people who love her most in this world, but the person who understands her best and supports her deviant ideas the most is her husband. For example, after being married for so long and being over 20 years old, she still doesn't want to have children, and her family members have even tried to persuade her quietly. Her husband never said a word. As long as she is happy, he is happy. The rest is not important. However, she touched her belly quietly and raised the corners of her mouth slightly. Some surprises should have arrived quietly. "What are you thinking about?" Muju stepped forward and shook his wife's hand, then turned to the Marquis and said, "Father, I have tied a rope on the edge of the cliff, which is enough to reach the bottom of the cliff. Let's go down the mountain, and finally we don't have to work hard." Muju still had some palpitations when he recalled the process of climbing up Lejun Cliff. "It's not that I'm tired, I actually have my wife on my back." At one moment she was worried that a branch would scratch her, at another moment she was worried that an insect or snake would scare her. The Marquis stood up with a smile, took one last look at the mountains and forests shrouded in clouds, and said, "Then let's go, the scenery at the next stop will be better." Muju and Jiyan also laughed. Jiyan waved his hand to close the two-story building, and then lightly jumped on Muju's back. The three of them walked to the edge of the cliff and followed the arm-thick rope. Life is like this journey, no one knows where the end is. But every step must leave a solid footprint, and then run towards a better future. Spreading flowers, it's over. Thank you guys for accompanying me all the way. End of this chapter.